don't do this well. I was pondering, what do I do, what do I say, what do I share? Because to me, there's the big things in life that are obvious. The birth of the child, the marriage with your wife, good friends. But I don't really believe in fate. I'm not really superstitious. Thomas Jefferson is famously quoted for saying, "I am a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more luck I have." That's been the things that are instilled in me from my father growing up, and it's kind of how I live my life. And as a result, sometimes you get too arrogant, sometimes you get too happy, too sad. You get caught up in life and you forget, and you're busy, and you're distracted, you forget to listen to God and what He has to offer you. So, in trying to prepare for today, I was thinking about the different paths that were offered, and the story that I want to share with you is one that's made up of the little things that turn into big things. I grew up in a church. It's 27 miles from downtown Chicago, so it sounds like it's close to Chicago, but it was a small town, about 10,000 people, a lot like Onalaska. And I grew up in a church, very, very active. My grandmother played in the bells, she did everything. My dad was the treasurer, he did everything. My mom, and we were just very, very active in the church. So I was confirmed in the church, much like this church. I enjoyed the camaraderie, the passion of the people. Yeah, we were Bears fans, but you have to let me go with that. But I was very close to my grandmother and my grandfather, and we spent a lot of time together. I was very, very close to them. Weekends, I'd often spend the night with them and go to church on Sunday with them. I actually was so close to them that I know this is going to sound strange, but I would actually take my dates to see my grandparents before my parents. But they were cool, they were fun, they were wonderful people. Well, fast forward, I was at the University of Illinois studying engineering. My final semester, I was actually going to get out early, so I graduated early because I came in with the blessings of credits that I was able to get in high school. And so it was the fall semester. I was ready to graduate, I thought, and I met with my counselor, and she said, "You're doing great. You're going to get out early in engineering, except you forgot to take a humanities class." Now, as an engineer, you got to understand humanities classes are hard ones. So I didn't know what to do, so I said, okay, I'll sign up for Philosophy 106. I figured it'd be full of freshmen, they'd be incoming, I'm a senior, this is good. Well, when I went to class, here I am thinking I'm the big guy on campus, and very unimpressed was my wife sitting in front of me. Being bold and brave and a little cocky, I guess, I got up the gumption to ask her out, and of course she turned me down. And she shouldn't, but she did. And as it was, I got her phone number from her at that point. It didn't. Anyway, a few weeks go by, and my grandmother passes. And so that really gets me all worked up. I actually disappeared from college. I had a real hard time losing my grandma. And so when I came back to school, I had all of my friends. We were very, very tight with all the classes and engineering school. Got all the caught up. Friends were great, except Philosophy 106. I don't know the teacher. I didn't spend any time on that part of the campus. I don't know anybody. So in a position of being very humble and very me, as opposed to the other me, I had to call Kathy to find out what to do to catch up to class. And being more humble, being more modest, just trying to ask for help, we had a really good conversation. And one of the things you learn about my wife, oh my gosh, is if you're humble and honest, she sees that. And she didn't get to see that the first time I said I. Anyway, through the passing of my grandmother, I meet my wife. Well, the semester continues, and I'm getting prepared for graduation. I was going to go into a dual master's program at Illinois. I had my whole life planned. I was going to go back to Chicago. I was going to become a consultant. I was going to just rock the world. You all know those images you see on TV. That was going to be me. And during our relationship as it progressed, she had only 2 requirements to continue our relationship. I can't live in Chicago, and I certainly can't live in the suburbs. Okay. Well, so how does all this come back to God? Well, there's a couple interesting things that happened. So I was graduating, and my father, who was the best man at my wedding, said to me, you should at least interview. Even though you're going to master's school, good for you, just interview, get a flavor of what's out there, get an idea. So I did. I did interviews for practice. I really felt bad, actually, in hindsight, wasting people's time. But I went through some interviews, and there was one gentleman who showed up to interview from a company called Training. I was thinking choo-choos, you know, but really nice man. His name was Tom Sefko, and he was a 35-year veteran of Train who showed up on campus to do an interview and asked me why I was so interested in sales and marketing. And I just was overcome. And I just looked at him and I said very humbly, I'm very sorry, sir. I'm actually just doing this interview for fun. I'm not interested in working for Train or HVAC or whatever that stood for. And he looked at me and said, well, I have 30 minutes. Let's talk. I don't know if anybody's ever done any recruiting. I have, and when you're recruiting and you get the indication that the person's not interested or you're not interested, you try to make it as short as possible and be done. And so I expected him to be done with me. Instead, he took 30 minutes of his life, because it was on his calendar, and talked to me. And at the end of the 30 minutes, he said, hey, you know what? I think you'd be a great fit for this company called Train. I think you'd be great sales and marketing, even though you think you wouldn't be. Why don't you come up to La Crosse, Wisconsin, and take a look? Okay, so I did. And what's interesting is I come back down to Illinois, tell Kathy how wonderful the interview was, have dinner with Kath, and I'm talking to her saying, I don't know what to do. And she walked me through all the reasons why I should do it. And of course my father said, you're going to get a master's in something you have no idea about life yet, so you might want to actually take a job and then get your master's. But my wife looked at me, well, at the time, girlfriend, and just said, I think this is something that you should do. So I did it, and I took the job in Wisconsin. And again, if you know Kathy, she's not going to look out what's good for her, she's going to look out what's good for everybody else. And she didn't want me to take that job. We separated 7-hour drive for 2 years, but we endured that. And as I reflect, you say, well, how was these parts of God moments? You see them, but one of the things that, the little things that God puts in front of you that you forget to see. Mike Malone, if you know that name, he was a recruiter at Train. The morning that he was supposed to travel down to the University of Illinois to do the recruiting, he's a professional recruiter, mind you. He got the stomach flu and couldn't go, so his boss, Tom, the old man, said, I'll go. Now, had Mike been in that room, I'd not be here today. Had Tom not taken the time to talk to me, I wouldn't be here today. And I think about the fact that when I joined Train, Mike became one of my best friends. And 14 years ago, he stood here during Will's baptism as his sponsor. These little things don't really hit you until, I guess, you get older. I don't know, 40s, anyway. And you start to reflect on what's God done for you and what should you be doing for God. But there's another small story in there. When I was Ben's age, 10, 12 years old, we used to leave Chicago every Friday afternoon and get in the car and drive to Wisconsin. And every Sunday night, drive back to Chicago. Dad, if we love it so much in Wisconsin, why don't we live there? So you can't find a real job in Wisconsin. Now, when you're 12 to 13 years old and your dad tells you you can't do something, I gotta tell you, it's really great when you can actually fulfill that someday later. And so it's all these little things culminate. So you knew I'd get to this point this church. Now, is Pastor Bruce here? He's back? He's way in the very back. You knew you were in here. So when Kathy and I ended up moving here, getting married, we had to find a church. I only had 2 requirements. One, the pastor had to be cool and know something about the outdoors. And Pastor Bruce, you nailed it. It was a fishing story my first time out here. So you're part of the reason I'm here and part of the reason my father's still comes to church. But anyway, I also had a second requirement. It had to have pipe organs. I don't know why, I just had to have a pipe organ. So those things rock, so thank you, Sandy, for playing those. It's special to me. But my wife wanted something that we could grow into. At the baptism this morning, how do you grow? And how do you connect? And what does the church do for the community? Because so much happens for us. I mean, my life has been a blessing. What can we do to give back? And the people before us built this wonderful church. We wanted a church where we could physically come, spiritually connect with our friends, our neighbors, and people in the community. And this church does something that no other church does in this community that I've seen and heard and done. We care about the community more than we care about ourselves, and we're bigger, we're greater than the people we're in. Together we do amazing things for this community. That's something I'm proud to be part of. So anyway, the pictures in the narthex, that's the state that we're looking for, the church that we want to have in the future, because the people before us did. But we're Methodists. We're practical. We're salt of the earth people, right? What do we need all that for? Why do we need the sizzle? Imagine if the people before us didn't build what we have today. Think about what we could do tomorrow to change the lives of young people, older people, and baptisms. I know that when I look at my wife, and I look at my children, and I look at my life and my friends, I can't say thank you enough to the community, to each one of you for welcoming us to this church. Just feel very, very honored. So thank you for enduring my long story and an already busy schedule today. But I hope to continue to see you for the next 20 years in a bigger building.
Amen.